Hello, we'd like to welcome you to it's a grand life, and I think you're absolutely going to be blessed today. Our guest is someone I've been trying to get on the program for quite a while, and she is a world traveler these days, and she's joining us from sunny Florida. Her name is Cristina Broomfield, and she is a psychotherapist and with years of experience and also a entrepreneur. She and her husband owned a psychotherapy facility in Troy, Michigan, with numerous therapists, have helped just hundreds of folks over the years. Had her own radio show for many years on WMUZ here in the Detroit area. And I know you're absolutely going to be blessed. But the main reason she's here is because she has been a successful family living out the grand life. She has helped raise a grandchild. We're not going to get into all the weeds about everything that went on with that, but I know you're going to be blessed because every time I talk to her, I learn something new. So without any ado here, Cristina, I'd like to welcome you to It's a Grand Life. And can you tell us a little bit about your experience as a psychotherapist and how that has worked for you throughout your whole career?
Wow. Well, thank you. It is good to be here, Craig. When you asked me initially, I was very excited about getting this thing scheduled. And I would be outside with the palm trees and the blue skies as the background. But I didn't want to cause any rift between your viewers. So, they might not like that. Right now it's snowing, as I hear in Troy. But anyway, so how did I become a therapist? Is that
yes?
yeah?
Tell us a little about your background, how has that helped you when you had your grand family, and how did that all work out, and just what was your experience all about?
Well, my husband and I, our kids were in middle school and high school, and we were ready to go back to school just to further our education. He went back into in a master's program in counseling and later a doctorate in psychology. Yeah. And I was taking marketing because I was doing a job that required sales. And he would come home and he would talk about all this neat stuff in the classes, and I would come home and talk about business law. Now, I'm not, some of you out there may love business law. I did not. And the more and more I heard about his classes, I thought, I wonder if it's too late to change my major. And so my undergraduate in psychology has a strong emphasis in marketing. And, that came in handy because I went on for my master's in clinical psychology, my husband, his doctorate. And God just blessed us, put a burden on our heart to open an office, hire a handful of therapists, and begin to work with families. We landed more in couple therapy, others with children and adolescents, and it grew the business. And so we were blessed to own and run Perspectives Counseling Centers for almost 2 decades before we retired.
That's terrific. And although you are semi-retired now, you're still accepting new patients, I would imagine.
I am. It's hard to walk away from helping people. And when we sold our business and moved on, then COVID hit, and the whole idea of telehealth kicked in. So that allows us to take direct referrals. We don't market. And it also allows us to enjoy some retirement as we spend 4 months in Florida. So yes, he takes clients still, and I do as well.
So you are still living the grand life. You're seeing patients from Florida, and we're up here in the snow belt. But tell our listeners how you successfully modeled the grand life and raising your granddaughter, and what was that experience like? And even as a psychotherapy professional, there had to be some challenges with that.
Oh, yeah. I think we're still human. We don't have all the answers. As a matter of fact, I've often told my husband that being a therapist is probably better for me than anybody else because, physician, heal yourself. You learn a lot by helping other people. Let me roll the clock back a bit. There was a series of tragedies that took place where it led to my husband and I stepping in and raising our then 3-year-old granddaughter. And my daughter, her mother, had been in a terrible car accident. She was a pedestrian and hit by a drunk driver. And the years of recovery prevented her from being able to focus on her daughter. And then tragically, about 8 months later, her husband had a grand seizure, put him in a vegetated state, and then he later died. And so one of our daughters had stepped up and was taking care of our granddaughter. Her name is Catherine. We call her Caitlin.
Okay.
And she, I was at the hospital all the time, and life was just very, very tense and stressful and crazy. But it became very clear in 2004, February of 2004. I remember clearly this little almost 4-year-old stepped into our world. We had a bedroom, we had all the things set up for her, and we were ready to grandparent. And so we learned a lot. Just to bring our viewers up to date, our dear Caitlin is now 20 college. She was married last summer, and she is a great blessing in our life. But being a therapist, of course, you're going to step into this, and of course, you're going to have all the answers and just do it right. That didn't happen.
So you mean to tell us you made mistakes like the rest of us are doing?
Just a few.
Yep.
We, it was quite a setback in my emotional state because we have 5 daughters and they were all out of the house, married, having children of their own. We enjoyed grandchildren. At this point, we have 15 grandkids and 2 great grandchildren.
Wow.
So we do have a big gathering at Thanksgiving. But having to step back in time at that point in my life and begin to deal with the pitter-patter of little feet around the house, I don't know that I was really ready to embrace that. And, God continued to do a great work in our lives. And we, I will say from this side of that experience, I wouldn't have changed it at all. God knew what he was doing, as he always does.
And I know you are a person of faith, and I wanted to ask you how important is having a personal relationship with Jesus Christ and in helping you raise your granddaughter. How vital was that in the whole process?
Well, I don't know how people do it without God. The fact is we hold on to our faith and our deep beliefs in a sovereign God, in a God of purpose, in a God that is our good shepherd. He's going to take care of us. But when push comes to shove and you're in a place and it's not short term, it's long term.
Right.
And you're looking years out. It really causes you to pause and embrace God does know what he's doing, even though I don't feel like it.
Right.
And it is an exercise of faith from the get-go, because the 2 verses we all know them, but they became so real in my life. Faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. We don't see his plan, but without faith, it's impossible to please God. And so many, a moment, not a day, not a week, a moment, in the moment, I needed to hold on to that faith that God was sovereign and he had purpose. And that's all to say, I was not 100%, getting up, I can't believe what I have to do to, no. There were so many fun moments. But parenting and grandparenting is very different, especially as we view our kids.
Right. But what I believe you're describing, Cristina, is not a religious situation, but more a relationship with Jesus Christ, who helped you and your husband deal with this curveball, if you will, this change of plans. You're thinking you are heading down with the fifth wheel down to Florida, and that was the timing was not right at that time to do that. God had another
Absolutely.
plan, and
Yeah.
but the benefits of it's we're not talking about making it to mass at 9 o'clock every Sunday. We're talking about we've got an issue that comes up in the house, and you can talk to the Lord about that anytime. And
Amen to that.
right, and
Yes.
how has that been unbelievable in your relationship with your granddaughter?
Well, in that regard, an ongoing relationship, not a head knowledge, but a heart knowledge, which really is our emotions, how we respond. It is many days just being so prayerful. Our little granddaughter was diagnosed early on with attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, ADHD, and I'm sure our viewers know a little bit about that. I did not. As a therapist, our five daughters didn't have, they went in, they played with their Barbie dolls, nice and quiet. And here I have this little girl bouncing off the walls, taking her shoes off and throwing them out the window as we're driving. I mean, to tell you, I said, "What are you?" I soon discovered that from her father's DNA, she had embraced ADD along with that hyperactivity. So every day was a beautiful challenge, stretching me, growing me, and leaning on God through all of that.
Because that was a different situation than
Well, it's very different. Like I said, and we had to learn. I never knew SpongeBob was a sponge. Now you'd think I would know that, right? That they all lived under the sea and they had this little life and community going on.
Yep.
I didn't have a clue about SpongeBob. I knew Scooby-Doo, which drove me crazy. And of course, we moved into all of these other things that are appropriate for that age, very
Right.
age appropriate. But you have to remember, I'm past that as this little one steps into our life. So we had to make quite a few adjustments. And one that we love, my husband's a Harley guy, and
Okay.
he loves his motorcycle, and we would do road trips and just all sorts of fun things. And of course, when little Caitlin walked into our life, there was what were we going to do? So we needed to talk and think about how are we going to still enjoy some part of our life, the things that we enjoy. So my husband talked me into buying a red convertible Mustang.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah. And, I think he kind of was waiting for that moment. And so we bought of course, we had the car seat in the back. We would put the top down. We would put her in that car seat. And because I'm a little OCD, afraid of things happening, I struggle a bit. We would make her wear her bike helmet. It was Princess, Snow White.
Okay.
And so she would sit in her car seat with a Snow White bike helmet on, because I would say, well, what if you get in a car accident? She gets thrown out, even though she's strapped in. Anything can happen. And she would sit high. We would have the top down, and we got a lot of lookers. But we enjoyed our road trips of sorts in the back of that Mustang.
So you had to make an appropriate adjustment, and you did. You still were outdoors. The top was down, and that makes a whole lot of sense. And one of the things that you and I have talked about in the past, which I thought made so much sense, was the importance when you're dealing with your grandchildren on setting boundaries, and
Yes.
and how important that is, not only for you as the parent, but also for the child. And could you get into that a little bit for our listeners?
Sure. The thing that we have to understand here is that if you are grandparenting, you are not a grandparent. You're a parent. And I mentioned earlier, I have 15 grandchildren. And when we get together and do different things, they have parents to parent them. And I just get to enjoy them and, sneak candy to them and do all sorts of fun things that grandparents should.
Right.
So there was a bit of a grief in raising our granddaughter, in that I couldn't be her grandparent. I was her parent. We were her parents. We had to set the boundaries, set the rules. And I'll never forget one time the whole family was over, and she was probably about 8 or 9. And she said to me, Nana, how come you're harder on me than all my cousins? And I said, well, I'm not your cousin's parent, but I am parenting you. And so there are going to be boundaries and there are going to be rules, and you will be disciplined for things simply because, this is the role that I am in your life. But they have parents doing that. And so important to understand that the grief of losing that role for a while, when they get older, you can step back into it and be that grandparent as they move into adulthood. But as you're raising that little one, you are the parent, and you need to set the rules just like you would if you were a parent.
But you did just touch on something that is absolutely true, that there is a point where you may be grieving the
Yes.
life, the role that you're giving up. And
Yeah.
and it's okay to grieve, right?
Yeah. Oh, yes, absolutely. God gave us emotions. And I often share this with clients. It's not wrong to be emotional. He gave us emotions so we could feel these things. And so grief is one of them. He modeled grief for us
Right.
at the death of Lazarus. But we always want to go back to the truth. The emotions are like a roller coaster, up and down, up and down. The straight line is truth. And that is even when I'm grieving, in my grief, which I'm allowed to grieve that. God has said, grieve. But I still know he's in charge. I still know he's sovereign and he has a purpose.
That's absolutely great. And we talked one time about one of the challenges that, when you're dealing with children with either behavioral health issues or other things that can actually impact the mental health of the grandparent, and it's
Yes.
something to watch out for. And what did you mean by that?
So, I have worked with couples and individuals that are going through grandparenting, and they have the reason that they are in that situation is that their adult child, is suffering from a mental health issue and not able to raise that child, and so they have stepped up and done that. And my husband, he should be on your show. He's full of wisdom,
Love to have
and
them.
and he would say, mental health and mental illness is a terrible thing. It is just sad to be suffering with bipolar, schizophrenic, depression, anxiety, all the whole thing. But when the mental illness of the adult child affects you and you become depressed and anxietal and really diagnosably mentally ill yourself, that's worse. That's sad. Because if you know that this is my adult child, they're suffering from this, I can understand that and embrace that, but I won't let that spill over on me to the point that I'm not functioning, because that's even worse, to be impacted by someone in the family that has mental illness so that you feel mentally ill or that you suffer so greatly. So it's guarding your heart and your mind.
But if you start to recognize those things, it's time to reach out to someone like yourself.
It is. It is. And God has just allowed me to step into the lives of so many individuals that are in this situation. And I think, much of what I do is psycho ed. It is educating. It is helping people understand what's going on. And, it's scary not to know. But when you can sit with somebody and it can get defined and you don't feel alone in all of this, that there are
Right.
other, then you go, well, then I'm not, it's just not me. And it just gives a sense of peace there that you can join with others, even for support and sharing stories. And I've done that myself.
Right. And so that is absolutely so important. You don't want your child's mental illness to impact your mental health. And it's, of course, we're in a culture now post COVID. There's a 46% increase in behavioral health diagnoses, they're telling us, and Wall Street Journal is commenting on those things and others. So everyone knows someone or is dealing with some mental health issues post the pandemic anyway. So it shouldn't be foreign to anybody. But which reminds me, how important is managing your personal stress level when you're raising your grands? How important is that in this type of situation?
Well, when you think about even parenting, young moms, at our church, we have a mom's ministry. And it's wonderful because the moms can get together twice a month and the kids are in the nursery and it's something for them and they can talk through things and look through God's word. And so moms need to manage. But now let's bump that over to our grandmoms, okay,
Right.
that are raising a grandchild.
Right.
And there's another level, and that level is it didn't have to be this way.
Right.
If this and this and this would have happened, I wouldn't be doing this. I would be enjoying being a grandparent. Well, you
Right.
wouldn't think that through a mom. Mom and dad make a decision. They have a baby and they're going to step into it and do it very willingly. And unfortunately, as much as we love our grandchildren, we want them to be our grandchildren.
Right.
And so when we become that parent, there's a little bit of a pushback, and then you feel guilty about pushing back. So it's this crazy cycle that you get into. You're looking for babysitters, and I cannot even believe what they charge. When I was growing up, it was 50 cents an hour.
Right.
If I had to get babysitters for the girls, I thought 75 was over the top. Well, I found out how much babysitters cost when we wanted to have a night out. And I said, I need to get a second job to support this. So you must manage that second level of stress, which is really all about how you view things, how you frame things. It didn't have to be this way. It could have been. No, you can't land there. God
Right.
is sovereign. God chose and allowed it to happen, and he brought this into your life. And so what a blessing that God is using me in this child's life or in these children's life. It all has to do with how we think, how we view. And then we need those nights out, despite the cost of a babysitter.
Right. Yeah, you have to have a balance, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
And if you're just tuning in, we just want to let you know that our guest today is Cristina Broomfield. She is a professional psychotherapist of many years and also a successful grandparent who has raised a granddaughter. And she can talk to us from a therapeutic perspective, but also from a first-person grandparent perspective. And that's invaluable when you're new to this role, entering into this grand life. And Cristina, I want to ask you, what is the one thing you want our grandparents to know about raising their grands? What's the
God is
one thing?
sovereign.
Pardon me?
God is sovereign.
God is
God is
sovereign.
sovereign. I can't, when you narrow it down to one thing and not, 20, I can give you 20 points. But overall, God is sovereign. He's in control. He's allowed it. He's caused, whatever decisions had brought it there. And he has given you the greatest honor of all, is to be part of this little one's life. So embrace it.
And it can be very challenging at times, but it's just a
Yes.
blessing. So you've told us the one thing is to know that God has placed this little one in your life and given you this outstanding opportunity. Enter into it prayerfully, of course. But what would you tell what would you not do if you had to raise your granddaughter over again? What would you you do? Yes, no, God is sovereign, but whatever you do, don't do this.
Yeah. Okay. That was a hard question. You did, for the viewers here, you did give me the heads up on a couple of these questions. I had to sit and think about that. And I'll tell you two. Can I answer two?
As many as you want. Yes.
Okay. Yep. So the first thing is, I would make sure they had an adult chair for me to sit in when I went in for those parent teacher conference when she was in second grade. Sitting there with my knees up to my chins, I didn't like that. So no. All kidding aside, I had to really think through this. My husband and I, we lived in an adult world. We were adults. As I said earlier, I didn't even know who SpongeBob was. And I had grandkids. So I would go buy this stuff, but I wouldn't really look into it and dive into it. We didn't have play days. We didn't. What I would not have done is treated her so much like an adult. I would have let her be a child. She's eating Brussels sprouts and spinach while her classmates are eating hot dogs and macaroni and cheese.
Right.
And I'm not saying it's not. A lot of parents have only child, and the only child, but the parents aren't 2 generations up.
Right.
You see, we were older. We were when we stepped into this role, we were and we looked at her when she was 5. We're treating her like she's 8. When she's 8, we're treating her like she's 12. Don't you know not to do that? And I asked my husband about this, and this was really crystal clear for what I'm trying to share here. Is we didn't allow her to touch the walls of the house. The poor child. My husband remembers, when you get into the bathtub, she's little. She has to step in. So I had a little sticky dinosaur on the wall, and I said, you can only put your fingers on that dinosaur. Now, mind you, when we had all the girls home, we had very dirty walls. I never thought about the walls. They didn't matter to me.
Right.
But we moved past that, and everything had its place, and it was very nice. I ran this by my husband this morning. He said we had bought that Mustang, if you remember. And she was so little, she couldn't, when she got in, she had to stand up on that little lip and then step down.
Right.
Well, he didn't like her scratching the lip. So he taught her and practiced with her how she could just step right onto the floor. And, we look back now and we go, poor Caitlin. As much as we had challenges, she had challenges with us. Right? Yeah, because I would have let her be more of a kid, I think, to answer that.
So as parents, you would say chill a little bit.
Yes. Grandparents.
Chill. Take a chill pill. Just right. The carpeting can be cleaned and the walls can be wiped down.
Yes.
The
dinosaur is still there. We painted the whole house, and she comes over and laughs. We left it right where it's always been. Just a reminder.
That is so perfect. So did you ever find that in raising your granddaughter that it heightened any conflict between you and your husband? And how did you handle that, if there was anything, or and anything stick out?
Well, Craig, we never fight. If you believe that, I've got something to sell you up in Alaska.
Well, I'm married to a lawyer. We never fight. We just have depositions every day.
Well, that works.
Yes, I can tell you how many of those I've won. But go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh yes. Of course, it causes conflict. And we're always going to have conflict. It's really about learning how to work through the conflict, and so we would talk a lot. And come up with solutions. I mentioned earlier about not being able to ride the motorcycle and go on those trips. That was really huge for my husband. He wasn't just that would be nice. His therapy is in the seat of a Harley motorcycle or any motorcycle. The guy loves it. And to have to give that up was really tough. So we talked, how do we resolve that? How do we still give you what you need and not have to get a babysitter all of the time? And when Caitlin got old enough to where she could ride the back of his motorcycle, I learned how to ride a motorcycle.
Oh.
Yep.
Really?
I'm a Harley babe. Now, would I have done this just because I want to? Probably not.
Yep.
I flunked the first road test, but I passed. I rode my own bike, and it was pink. It was silver with pink flames, and we named it Hot Flash because I was having them. And so
I love that. That's great.
And we went on many a bike, motorcycle day rides and things with he was riding in the front. Caitlin was on the back. I followed. And it was just so cute because as I was learning, Caitlin would put her little arm out and give me the thumbs up. And so I'm behind following them and making a turn and doing some things. And she knew I was new, and she was probably 8 or so, and she'd give me those thumbs up.
I think that's what a great lesson. So you always talk it through, and you come up with compromises that work. And it may mean getting a second motorcycle. And that's and everybody was still able to have fun, and you had the Mustang for a while, and that just is what a great lesson for our listeners. So
there's always options, Craig. When I work with people trying to make a decision, they always, they come up with maybe 2 options on either end.
Right.
I can do this or I can do this, and that's it. And as we talk through things, there's lots of different options in the middle. You just have to think outside the box and look for the end goal. What are we trying to achieve? And work together as a team. You don't have to give up so much. You can enhance what you have grandparenting.
That is just terrific. And well, that leads to how, did this change your retirement plans? Your granddaughter, did it put things off, or did you folks retire or slow? I mean, you're semi-retired now. I mean, did it change those plans at all, and how did you adjust to that?
We really weren't looking to retire. We just sold our business 6 years ago now.
Okay.
And Caitlin is now at the time she was in Bible college, and her mother has recovered and been very active in her life in these last years. It was about a 10-year recovery time.
Okay.
But so we do have a lot of contact in our retirement. As a matter of fact, Caitlin will be flying out here to spend some time with us coming up next month. And so for us, it did not impact any plans for retirement. But I know couples that it has. And not just necessarily getting a 3-year-old, a 13-year-old, one that has already kind of got their mindset and their values, and maybe oppositional, a little bit. Something has happened. And so that's a different set of challenges.
Right.
And I just strongly support getting with others for that emotional support. And knowing that you're not alone in this.
Being part of a support group would really help as well as, and
friends. I have friends from different generational backgrounds. And so my one friend is just a little bit older than my daughter. And of course, my daughters have always been so helpful. But they would make sure that I wasn't dressing poor little Caitlin in stuff that you might do, 40, 50 years ago. They would help me navigate what needed to happen with this little one.
I think that's terrific, because that could be traumatic for Caitlin, right? If she's
it sure could. Yep. But we did send her to a school that had a uniform, so the daily dress was not so bad. You had one choice.
Right. That makes it very, very easy. So first of all, thank you so much for being our guest here, Cristina. You've been just such a blessing to our audience. And are there any parting thoughts you'd like to share with the folks at home today? Anything we missed out that you'd like to share to our It's a Grand Life audience?
Yes, I think that as we close this time up, thank you for having me. And I'll never forget the one story with our granddaughter. It was snowing like, it does in Michigan in winter. And we had enrolled her in a school where you had to drive her some way to get there. And so my husband was getting all bundled up, and I was putting her jacket on and her hood and her mittens and anything else. We dress these poor children till their arms are straight out. They can't even bend. And because of her ADHD, she was looking over here and looking over there, and she's wiggling. I couldn't get her to stand still so I could get this zipper up. And I'm hunched down looking her eye to eye, and I'm getting frustrated. I'm tired. We're getting up early, getting her out of bed, all the things that I didn't have to do. and I'm frustrating. And of course, I'm not handling her rough, but I'm handling her. And I'm looking straight at her, and she says, Nana. And I say, what? And she said, when I grow up, I'm going to take care of you and Papa. Now, I
Wow.
heard from the Lord. The Lord is sovereign. Embrace this time. He's got a plan. We may not know the end of that plan, but it is by faith we daily take those steps. And who knows, in my old age, which is approaching, that I love our daughters and I love all of our grandchildren, but it may be this very granddaughter that steps up and takes care of us in our old age. We don't know. So enjoy the journey.
Enjoy the journey.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I have certainly enjoyed our journey today with you, joining us here on It's a Grand Life. Every time we get together, it's an absolute blessing, and I hope you'll consider coming back again. And if our listeners wanted to get in touch with you, perhaps to consider being a patient, or to get some, maybe have you speak at their group or something, how could they do that? What's the best way to get in touch with Cristina Broomfield?
Since, I'm a world traveler now, and we really don't have an office, it would be my cell phone. And that number, I'm fine with giving it out. It's area code 248-872-1922. That's 248-872-1922. And we handle referrals and those interested in coming in and setting times to discuss some things through that. That's my personal phone. So.
Well, thanks so much for joining us here on It's a Grand Life. And I know you're probably going to get some calls from our listeners, and we just really appreciate your sharing today from your heart, and not only clinically, but also what it was like in the first person raising a granddaughter. And you and your husband just did a phenomenal job. We're all praying for that type of outcome for our grandkids. And,
amen.
And we just hope for you folks at home that you'll join us next time for another It's a Grand Life. Thanks for tuning in. Remember to never waste your pain. Your story can help others. That's the whole point of It's a Grand Life. Please reach out to me. I can be a blessing to you and pray for you, or help you connect to free resources that can make your journey a little easier. God can use your situation to bless others, even halfway around the world. Together, we have hope. And as my own grandma used to say, and she was always quoting biblical promises to me, but this one from Isaiah 26:3, He will keep him or her in perfect peace, whose mind is fixed on Him, because he trusts in Him. Please make sure to subscribe on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts so you don't miss an episode. I look forward to talking to you again real soon, but remember, with God's help, it's a grand life.